You don't have to pretend to be strong. What you need is a mind steady enough that nothing can shake it. No criticism can throw you off. No failure can make you panic. No temptation can pull you off course. And when you build that kind of mind, your very presence speaks louder than words. People will feel the pressure without you saying a thing. That kind of strength isn't new. It's been forged for over 2,000 years by warriors, emperors, and those who survived the chaos of their time. All thanks to one thing: Stoicism. It's not just a philosophy to admire. It's a battle-tested toolkit for anyone who wants to master their life, control emotions, build discipline, see things clearly, and become immune to manipulation and pain. If you're tired of the chaos, if you want to become unshakable, watch this video till the end. Stoicism might just be what you've been searching for. Number 1. Growth comes with loneliness. Do you want a mind so powerful it makes others uneasy? Then brace yourself, for the first thing you'll feel is a loneliness so intense it takes your breath away. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because, for the first time, you're doing what's right for you. You stop playing along with what everyone else accepts without question. You no longer fake excitement at empty social events. You start questioning what you used to follow blindly. And from that moment on, you're no longer normal. The world won't like it. The clearer your vision gets, the more it unsettles others. Every choice you make shines a light on what they've been avoiding. When you quit smoking, they feel judged. When you stay quiet while others gossip, they call you distant. But the truth is, you're not doing anything to them. You've just stopped wanting to be like them. Be honest. Aren't you tired of performing? Of pretending to care about things that don't touch your soul? Of smiling when you feel empty? You're not cold. You're just done being a background character in someone else's emotional drama. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "To live a good life, we have the potential for it, if we can learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference." A good life isn't measured by how many people surround you, but by how free you are from things that don't matter. And what truly scares people is this: when you stop chasing meaningless noise, you show them just how loud their own distractions are. From here on out, you'll have to master one of the hardest skills of all: walking alone without losing your way. No one teaches you how to do that. No school hands out a manual for staying awake while the rest of the world sleeps. But here's the truth: a strong mind isn't forged through applause, but in moments where no one understands you and you still don't fold. Picture this. You're standing in a dimly lit room. No phone, no voices, no distractions, just you and your rawest thoughts. Can you handle that silence? Or will you scramble to fill it, to escape, to drown it out with noise? Because if you can't sit alone with yourself, you'll always be a hostage to the crowd. And if you always need the crowd to feel whole, you'll never be strong enough to become who you really are. Emily Dickinson lived in silence, but her words echo through centuries. Nikola Tesla spent most of his life in isolation, but his ideas shaped the modern world. They didn't blend in, they stepped away, And in that solitude, they found razor-sharp clarity. Are you willing to pay that price? Tonight, just once, turn everything off. Lock your door, sit down, and write. What are you avoiding? What questions are you afraid to ask yourself? Why do you need so many people to feel like you matter? The answers won't come right away, but in that space, something stronger will begin to grow inside you. And remember, loneliness isn't the punishment. It's the place where reconstruction begins. It's the battlefield where your mind learns not to break. Once you can stand in silence and not wither, everything else, judgment, rejection, failure, becomes just background noise. And when you rise from that silence, with a mind that can't be shaken, the world will look at you differently, not with admiration, but with caution. Because they'll know you're no longer dependent, no longer easy to manipulate. And a mind like that, it makes people uncomfortable. Are you ready? Because the next lesson is even harder. When you change, the same people who once applauded you may be the first to walk away, and you'll need to stand tall when they do. Number 2, your change will threaten others. When you start to change, even in small ways, like thinking differently, speaking more thoughtfully, turning down pointless drinking sessions, or sharing more thoughtful perspectives, it can be enough to make people around you uncomfortable. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your growth, however subtle, acts like a mirror reflecting their own stagnation. And people, by instinct, don't like looking into mirrors that show them something they're not proud of. You might have felt this before. You start reading more, trying out minimalism, or stop complaining and begin taking responsibility for your choices. You expect support, maybe even excitement. But instead, you hear half-joking comments like, "Getting too deep for us, huh?" Or, "Since when did you get all philosophical?" Or worse, you get silence and disinterest when you share something meaningful. It's not that you're wrong, it's that you're making them confront themselves. Mental growth, especially when it's real, is quiet but powerful. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The light doesn't say anything, but suddenly everything becomes visible. And if someone's grown comfortable in the dark, that light can feel harsh. Social psychology has a name for this: groupthink. It's the mechanism that keeps everyone aligned on the surface to preserve a sense of safety. In a group used to complaining, the first person to go quiet and look for solutions is labeled weird, distant, or even dangerous. Not because they're wrong, but because they disrupt the old order. And all evolution, by nature, is a threat to what no longer serves us. Ever wonder why Socrates was sentenced to death? It wasn't really because he was corrupting the youth of Athens, as the charges claimed. It was because he forced society to face its delusions, its blind beliefs and lazy thinking. He didn't kill anyone, didn't steal anything, but through his questions, he made people think. And that alone terrified those in power. The same happened with Malcolm X. When he shifted his message from black nationalism to a broader humanist vision, he wasn't just hated by the system, he was seen as a traitor by his own allies. Sometimes, growth makes you a threat to your old tribe. So here's the real question. Have you ever held back your growth just to keep others comfortable? How many times have you shrunk yourself to stay safe in someone else's approval? Here's a truth most people won't tell you. The ones you try to please today might be the first to abandon you when things fall apart. But the inner strength you build, even if it's lonely, is what will save you. Don't shrink back just because others aren't ready to move forward. No one grows without leaving some shadows behind. And if you're feeling lonely in your growth, remember what Marcus Aurelius said. The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. What should you do when others feel uncomfortable with your growth? Don't over-explain. Don't beg for understanding. Stay quiet and keep going. Real change doesn't need validation. It speaks through results and inner peace. Here's a simple practice. Write down 3 things you're changing and 3 negative reactions you've received. Then ask yourself, if I went back to who I was, would I respect myself more? The answer is usually clear. A strong mind isn't one that avoids resistance. It's one that keeps going despite it. Not everyone is ready for the new, but if you are, stop asking for permission. Just move. If this resonates with you, share one change you're making in the comments. Sometimes it only takes one person speaking up for others to find the courage to be real. And if you're ready to build an unshakable mind, subscribe. We've got a long road ahead, and it's worth every step. Number 3, let go of needing approval. People fear what they can't control. A free mind, one that doesn't seek approval or permission, is the most unsettling thing to the crowd, because it doesn't play by their rules. When you stop living for validation, you become unpredictable, and to society, that's a threat. Not because you're dangerous, but because you force people to confront what they've avoided in themselves. Nietzsche called this kind of person the Übermensch, someone who rises above herd morality and lives by a value system of their own making. The Übermensch doesn't ask, "Am I allowed to do this?" but instead, "Is this worthy of me?" Just as a climber doesn't ask directions from someone sitting in the valley, a truly strong person doesn't wait for approval before making a move. They've left behind the land of acceptable to enter the territory of authentic. Have you ever stopped doing something just because someone disapproved? Deleted a post because you thought, "No one will care"? The question isn't how often you censor yourself, it's whose life are you living? When your need for recognition drives your behavior, you're no longer at the wheel. You're just a puppet dressed up as an independent mind. Stoic philosophy teaches, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Growth demands the courage to look wrong. That's the price of freedom. The less you need approval, the more you're able to do what's right. But society resists this, because if you prove it's possible to stand alone, others will have to face the truth that they're not. Mediocrity doesn't need weapons, it just needs consensus. It uses pitying glances, practical advice, and quiet mockery to pull you back down. not because people hate you, but because your confidence makes them feel smaller. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a system where the weak reframe their failures as virtues. When you're strong, they call you cold. When you're independent, they say you're selfish. But you weren't born to please everyone. Galileo was condemned for saying the earth revolves around the sun, a truth that lacked popular approval. Rosa Parks, by refusing to give up her seat, forced America to confront its racial injustice. Real power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to flinch when the world shakes. Here's a simple challenge that reveals how much you're shaped by others' eyes. Go eat alone at your regular spot. No phone, no headphones, no pretending to be busy. Just sit still. The discomfort that creeps in isn't loneliness. It's the fear of being seen as lonely. But if you push through it, you'll realize the first taste of freedom comes from being at peace with how others see you. Ask yourself this: if you posted nothing, told no one, would your work still feel meaningful? If the answer is no, maybe you're performing life instead of living it. Like a farmer who plants for likes instead of fruit, you've been off track longer than you think. The Bible says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You don't need to fight the world, just have the courage to live differently. And it starts with letting go of the crowd's applause. If you truly want to build a mind that makes others uneasy, in the best way, start by defining your own values. Don't borrow morals from the majority. Don't wait for permission to move. Let every action answer one question: does this make me a better version of myself? And when you can stand tall on your own, without leaning on praise, you're not just formidable, you're free. Number 4, own your life completely. You don't need to raise your voice to be feared. Just stay calm when everyone else reacts. In a world run by reflexes, the one who pauses to think is the most dangerous person in the room. And that begins when you accept a hard truth. No one but you is responsible for your life. In Stoic philosophy, there's a recurring concept, logos, the rational order that governs the universe. Everything operates according to a certain logic, whether you like it or not. But logos isn't fate. It's the setting. How you act within that setting is your choice. You might lose your job, be betrayed, be misunderstood. That's the world's part. Your part is how you respond. And your response is your personal declaration of inner strength. We often confuse faith with surrender, as if living well guarantees life will go well. But maturity begins the moment you let that belief go. The moment you look in the mirror and ask, if no one helps me, how far can I help myself? That moment, when you stop looking outward for reasons and start taking control of what's within, that's when you truly grow strong. When Nietzsche said God is dead, he wasn't cheering for atheism. He wasn't celebrating. He was warning. He threw a bomb into humanity's moral foundation, saying that from now on, there's no guide, no scapegoat, no will of God, no fate, no higher power to define right and wrong for you. You're steering the ship, and you're also the only one to blame when it hits the rocks. It's a lonely truth, but it's pure power. Jean-Paul Sartre took it further. Man is condemned to be free. It sounds like a paradox. How can freedom, the thing we crave, be a sentence? Because without God, without destiny, without an instruction manual for life, every decision becomes critical, and no one else can take the fall for it but you. You can't blame your parents, society, or circumstances. Freedom is a burden. You have the right to rewrite your story, but you also lose the right to complain if the ending sucks. If that feels heavy, good. It's supposed to. That's the price of real freedom. And if you have the guts to carry it, you'll become the kind of person others don't know how to handle. They can't lure you with rewards, can't scare you with loss. They can't control you, and that unsettles them. Where do you start? Start by dropping the excuses like, I'm this way because of my childhood, because of society, because they don't understand me. You're not that way. You chose to be, and you can choose differently, but only if you're honest enough to erase the whole list of reasons you've used to avoid facing yourself. Try something simple that most people never do. Before bed, don't ask, who drained me today? Instead ask, what responsibility did I avoid today? Write it down, not to beat yourself up, but so that tomorrow you can make a different move. A small, consistent choice can shift the entire direction of your life. A strong mind isn't one that knows everything. It's one that takes responsibility, even for the unknown. If you're still reading, stop for 3 seconds. That's right. Just stop. Breathe. Look around and notice this. You just proved something powerful. You can control your actions, even while a video is playing. That's strength. And if you've made it halfway through with us, hit like as your personal pledge. A pledge to yourself that you're done living like a victim. And don't miss the next part, because every piece of this journey is building one thing, a mind the world has to reckon with. Number 5, strength is facing pain. How do you build a mind so strong it makes others hesitate? The answer isn't in feel-good mantras like love yourself or everything will be okay. Real strength doesn't come from denying pain. It comes from facing it head-on. Sometimes, the cracks in your soul are exactly where the light gets in, showing you the path to becoming unshakable. But ask yourself, how many times in life have you chosen to run instead of endure? And where did that get you? A mind of steel isn't forged in comfort. It's shaped in chaos, in confusion, in sleepless nights. That's where you either break or you rebuild. We forget, inner turmoil isn't a sign of weakness. It's raw material. It's the clay from which a deeper, stronger version of yourself is formed. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that humans can endure almost anything as long as they find meaning in the pain. So here's the real question. Have you ever tried to find meaning in your suffering? Or have you just been trying to escape it? There's a reason I want to tell you this story, because it proves a hard truth. Pain doesn't destroy you, avoiding it does. There was a man named James, a successful engineer, a husband, a father. Everything fell apart when his 6-year-old son died in an accident. For months, James was a ghost. He shut down every emotion, buried himself in work, tried to outrun the grief. But the more he ran, the emptier he felt. Then one day, he saw his son's old shoes under the table and collapsed. For the first time, he let himself cry, let himself remember, and that was the turning point. He began writing letters to his son, one each day. He wrote about the ache, the guilt, the moments they never got to share. A year later, those letters became a book that helped thousands of parents survive their own losses. Maybe you haven't faced a tragedy like James, but everyone has a pain they keep buried. What matters is not to run from it, but to sit with it. Start each day with this question: what pain am I trying to ignore? Write it down, not to complain, but to understand. Then ask, what can this teach me? When you dare to confront pain, it loses its grip. It becomes fuel. Just like coal under pressure turns into diamond, your mind sharpens under pressure too, until it becomes something formidable. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Without hardship, there is no strength." So ask yourself, do you want comfort in illusions or growth through truth? Now pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, how many times have you backed down just to avoid hurting? How many big moments in your life got buried under the fear of feeling too much? Here's a practical tool. Choose a painful memory. Rewrite it from the perspective of someone who's already made it through. Don't write like you're stuck in the storm. Write like you've come out the other side and you're telling the story. Because when the story changes, your mind does too. A strong mind isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And the raw materials are the hardest to hold. Pain, loss, failure. While others flinch, you walk forward. While others complain, you learn. While others fall, you grow. And that's when people start to fear you, not because you don't hurt, but because you don't break. And once you've turned pain into your weapon, you're ready for the next lesson. Prepare for the worst. Not to live in fear, but to become someone nothing can break. Number 6, expect the worst. One of the most quietly powerful habits of mentally strong people is this: they always prepare for the worst. Not because they're pessimists, but because they refuse to live in denial. They don't want surprises. They don't want a shock to rob them of clarity. That's what makes them dangerous, because you can't break someone who's already made peace with failure. Ever notice? The person who unsettles others the most isn't the one screaming or complaining. It's the one sitting silently in the chaos, face unchanged. They watch the storm arrive like they've been expecting it. People often call them cold, but it's not the coldness. It's Stoicism at the highest level. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The wise man sees in the misfortune of others what he should avoid. The wise don't wait for disaster to learn how to face it. They observe, reflect, and prepare. They ask the uncomfortable questions most people avoid. What if someone I love dies unexpectedly? What if my job disappears overnight? What if I'm betrayed by the person I trust most? Not to torment themselves, but to bulletproof their minds. In investing, Howard Marks, one of Wall Street's sharpest strategists, once said, "Risk is what's left when you think you've thought of everything." He never enters a deal without playing out the worst-case scenario. Not because he lacks confidence, but because he understands. It's not failure that kills you, it's surprise. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you imagined the worst-case scenario? And when was the last time you broke down because you never thought it would happen? A practical exercise is to build a collapse model. At the end of each week, pick one area of your life, work, love, health, finances, and write down the worst thing that could realistically happen in that space. In detail, no filters. Then, write how you would respond. What's your backup plan? Who can you lean on? Then put your phone down. Listen to your heartbeat. If you're still breathing normally, not flinching, you're getting closer to being unshakable. People don't fear you because you're rich or smart. They fear how you can't be rattled. They fear seeing you face loss and not fall apart. Fear you for being prepared for what they don't even dare to imagine. Your calm exposes their fragility. Have you ever watched Mike Tyson walk into the ring? No trash talk, no smiles. His face was almost blank, like the fight had already played out in his mind 100 times before. Tyson didn't just beat opponents with muscle, but with calculated numbness, forged in poverty, abuse, and having nothing to lose. Preparing for the worst doesn't make you cold. It makes you immune to paralysis. Most people avoid thinking about pain because they fear it. You open the door, let it sit at your table, and ask, "What are you carrying?" One last question for you. If you lost everything today, your reputation, your money, your relationships, what would still be intact inside you? A strong mind doesn't have to roar like a lion. It just needs to stay still, unmoved, while the world trembles. And sometimes that calm is enough to silence the entire room. Once you get used to welcoming the worst, the next step comes naturally. Not everything deserves a reaction. And not reacting isn't weakness. It's the ultimate sign of inner strength. But that's another lesson, a quieter kind of power, harder to grasp. We'll get to that next. Number 7. Power is not reacting. In life, most of our intense reactions come from trying to control what was never ours to begin with. What others say, how they treat us, how strangers behave, or the outcome of events. But here's the raw truth. We can't control what others think, do, or feel. Reacting impulsively is just a desperate attempt to reclaim control over something that was never in our hands. But there's one thing we do have full control over: how we respond. We can choose to be calm. We can choose silence. We can choose to observe. That's our role in the game. The rest belongs to life, to others, to the world, and we don't have to fight for it. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. When you lose your temper, you've handed over your mind to someone else." And the scariest part, they don't have to do much. A single comment, a look, and you're already gone. Non-reaction is the strength to accept that not everything is worth your peace. You don't have to always have the last word. You don't have to win every argument, because the real winner is the one who walks away without needing to defeat anyone. Listen to this story, not because it's dramatic, but because you might see yourself in it. And sometimes, watching someone else live through a lesson can wake you up even more. Andrew is a high school teacher. He's not wealthy, not powerful, but his students respect him. His colleagues admire him, not because he's strict, but because he's unshakable. One day, a student's parents stormed into the school, demanding Andrew be fired for discrimination. They shouted at him in the hallway, loud enough for entire classrooms to hear. Andrew said nothing. He just listened, silently, eyes fixed on the parent. When they finally stopped, not because they calmed down, but because they ran out of steam, Andrew simply said, "I understand you're worried about your child. I'll file a report with the principal, as per protocol." He didn't explain himself. He didn't fight back. Yet the entire school leadership stood by him, because no one could believe that someone so composed could be unfair. His stillness said everything. It reflected the overreaction back on the other person. This is the shift. Non-reaction isn't tolerance. It's the quiet stance of someone who knows the value of stability. Like a building that doesn't shake in a mild quake, you just know it's solid. And if you're wondering where to start, begin small. A pointless argument online, someone cutting in line, a rude comment. Don't reply, don't speak, just watch yourself in that moment. Don't react. Let your silence become a mirror, so others can hear their own noise. Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." When you react the way others want, you give them the power to shape your character. They pull your strings, and you mistake it for making choices. The dangerous part is, you won't even notice it right away, because reactivity always feels righteous, like you're defending truth, honor, or justice. But really, you're just getting pulled into a game where the rules aren't yours. You think you're in control, but you're being led from feeling to action. A strong mind isn't one that wins debates. It's one that doesn't need them. It doesn't raise its voice to prove anything, because it knows its worth isn't up for debate. When you stop reacting, you start living by your own standards. That's when no one can manipulate you with their words, their looks, or even their silence. If you're ready to build a mind so steady, it makes others pause, not because you threaten, but because you don't waver. Drop a comment. Silence is power. And start living like nothing can pull you out of yourself. Because that's how you become someone others both respect and fear, without ever raising your voice. Number 8. Critical thinking is the sharpest weapon. Powerful minds possess a weapon that no one can take away, a sharp, independent spirit that refuses to submit. In the fight against the mediocrity of modern life, lazy thinking, shallow public opinion, and knee-jerk emotional reactions, critical thinking is the sharpest blade you can forge. But no one is born with it. Critical thinking isn't a gift, it's a battlefield. A daily internal struggle where you constantly interrogate yourself. Why do I believe this? Who's influencing my thoughts? Are my words shaped by real experience or just echoes of the crowd? It's an unrelenting showdown between the habitual self and the awake self. And your victory isn't measured by how many people agree with you, but by the quiet clarity that comes each time you refuse to swallow an unexamined opinion. You don't need to control the world, only how you respond to it. But to do that, you have to learn to rethink, to think deeper, and to think differently. That means when someone says, "Everyone does it," you ask, who is everyone? And why should I be like them? When headlines flood in, you pause and ask, what's missing here? Not just to be contrarian, but to make room in your mind for truth, before emotion or noise hijacks it. The irony is that we live in the information age, yet most of us have never been taught how to truly think. We consume knowledge like fast food, fast, easy, and undigested. Then we wonder why we feel anxious, exhausted, and lost. A strong mind isn't one that holds the most facts. It's one that knows when to question. Every time you're hurt by someone's words, ask, why did that upset me? What fear did it touch? Every time you're angry, pause. What am I defending, truth or ego? The moment you start questioning instead of reacting is the moment no one can control you. And no, practicing this doesn't have to be complicated. Each day, choose one belief you've always held about yourself, others, the world, and put it under the microscope. When was the last time you truly changed your mind or admitted you were wrong? If you can't remember, ask yourself, are you really living or just repeating an outdated mental script? In every conversation, instead of waiting for your turn to argue, try listening, really listening, to understand what's driving the other person's point. It's hard, painfully hard, because it demands you set aside your ego and take the side of truth, even when the truth doesn't flatter you. A strong mind doesn't need to win every debate. It just needs to avoid wasting itself on debates that don't matter. Like a soldier picking the right battlefield, a critical thinker chooses where their energy goes. Strength lies not in knowing everything, but in knowing what's not worth believing, not worth reacting to, and not worth holding on to. So ask yourself, of all the things you believe, how many are truly yours, and how many were just programmed into you? Remember, no one can fully control their circumstances, but you can control how you interpret them. Critical thinking doesn't make you stubborn, it makes you unmanipulable. You're not easily convinced, and you're not easily triggered. You're the kind of person people don't know how to persuade, and that unsettles them. You don't need to shout to prove your strength. Just think deeply enough that your words make others fall silent. And that starts today, with the next time you ask yourself, have I really thought this through? We've just explored 8 principles for building a mind so strong the world can't help but take notice. No need to raise your voice. No need to prove anything. Sometimes quiet strength speaks loudest and makes others feel small without saying a word. That kind of power is born from a journey no one sees, where you stop living for approval and start living by what's right, where you realize no one's coming to save you, and that's the best thing that could ever happen, where you stop running from loneliness and finally sit down for an honest conversation with yourself. A formidable mind doesn't dominate others. It simply can't be controlled. It chooses what to think, when to stay silent, and how to act with intention. In an age where everyone's reacting, the rare few who pause to think are the ones who stand out. That rarity is power. If you found this video valuable and haven't hit like yet, do it now. Leave a comment. I'd love to know what part of this made you stop and think. Share it with someone you care about. This might be exactly what they need. And if you're committed to building an unshakable mind, hit subscribe. There's so much more ahead. Thank you, and see you next time.